Twin Cities Latunji with Latunji's Palette Bakery and Cafe, located at 1400 Park Avenue South in the Elliott Park community. We invite you to discover the best peach cobbler, coffee, soups, salads, and sandwiches in the Twin Cities. And also, you can find my delectable treats at North Market Grocery Store, Annex Farmers Market, Plant-Based Pop-Up, Bobby and Steve's, Handsome Hog, and our website, latunjispalette.com. That's latunjispalette.com.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States.
And 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected.
Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf.
Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy.
As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired.
Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
When it comes to mental health, connections with others can be a way forward. How do you reach out when you need someone? What do you do to support those who struggle? Whether you're struggling or know someone who struggles, see connections as comfort, hope, and joy, like sending a text, sharing a moment, offering a hug, seeing an old friend, seeing your grandma. Together, we can find ways to create a path forward. Visit cmentalhealth.org. Visit cmentalhealth.org.
Hey, Ogama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. M350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition. You can do.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask
Day with a high of 75. Spring has arrived and it's time to take a good look at your lawn. If there are bare spots or brown patches, Natural Lawn can help. For over 30 years, Natural Lawn has taken an environmentally friendly approach to lawn care. Beat the summer rush and visit naturallawn.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, hitting cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. We discuss local and national Native news and events. And as you know, Haley, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
Yes, they are, Robert. And today's episode of Native Roots Radio is presented in partnership with Little Moments Count.
Hey, you know, Little Moments Count is a statewide collaborative focused on helping parents and caregivers learn about the importance of brain development in the first 3 years of life. And we have an awesome guest here. We talked a little bit before we came on the air, and we have Linda Smith. Linda K. Smith is a director of early childhood policy at the Bipartisan Policy Center, a Washington, D.C. based think tank. Oh, thank you so much, Linda, for coming on and talking about early child development and your work over the years. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a really nice to be here, and I really appreciate the invitation.
Right. You know, I read in your bio that I see that you were raised in the Flathead Reservation. How did your experience growing up on the reservation influence your path as an early childhood educator?
Well, it's interesting because in so many ways, I mean, those early years are formative years for all of us. And growing up on a reservation in a very diverse community and all the experiences that go along with that were, life, they're just life experiences. But what impacted my work in early childhood was, and this is going to date me, but I actually volunteered in one of the very first Head Start programs that were developed back in the late 60s, early 70s. And I volunteered in the program on the Flathead, and actually went back to where I went to school at the University of Montana and changed my major and decided that I wanted to major in early childhood. Just understanding the impact, even in those days, the impact that you could have on children's lives. And the Head Start program has demonstrated that for many, many years.
Well, it really has, and it's been a great program. And those first few years are so important. Yeah, another question here. You have had many roles in early childhood education, including setting up a child care program on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation in your home state of Montana. You've remained a voice for tribal childcare over the years. Would you say this is an area of great interest to you, and if it is, why is it?
It is and has been, I think, because my first job in early childhood, really after I got out of college, was working for the Northern Cheyenne Tribe, and we set up a daycare program. And I was pretty young, actually, and it was given a lot of ability to do things. So I learned very early all of the mechanics of setting up a childcare program. And I think that has stayed with me throughout my career. It's like one of these things. I know I always go back to the circle of life, and you sort of end up going back to where you began. And I think that's what has brought me to this point where I'm working right now at the Bipartisan Policy Center in working on Native American issues and trying still to work on the issues around early childhood, childcare, and child development. I think one of the most important lessons that, if you want to talk about what you learned while you're there, was, I think what I learned so much is the importance of parents in the lives of children. And that if we're going to do anything in this country, we have got to involve parents more in the early childhood years and help them understand the importance of it, but give them, they know their children better than anybody, and we need to respect that more in this country across the board. But I think I learned that so early on in working with, on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation.
Right. And I know a lot of our relatives have a lot of trauma, and it's hard to raise a child when you're going through your own trauma. So that's an awesome idea, and it needs to happen because they both, in one way or another, need some sort of guidance and training.
Mm-hmm. We had a parent program along with and that was one of the takeaways again from the Head Start program, because the Head Start program does a really nice job of involving parents. And in the childcare program that I set up in both Lame Deer and then in Ashland, we involved the parents. And in fact, we set up parenting classes for them so that they learned what was going on with their children, but they learned along with their children. And you could just see the changes in families. And so I'm just, I guess it's what's coming full circle here, in terms of, what's good early childhood and that parent piece.
Right. And I know, and this is a little off subject, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, is that, with all the trauma and the losing the language in a couple generations, it's really good for our newly parents to learn about themselves, and then be able to teach whether it's learning language, or just learning to read to the kids when they're really young. Those are so important. And I know as a former educator, whatever you concentrate on gets better. And
Mhm.
so, your kind of work is just really so important.
We did, again, a little off topic, but one of the things that we did in the programs that I had on the Cheyenne Reservation were to bring in the culture at a time when that really wasn't done. There was a lot of emphasis on, we were just coming out of the time when the boarding schools and the whole issue, around some of those things. And we actually had one of our staff teaching the native language, which at the time people were saying, no, don't do that because then, they don't learn English. And there was just something intuitive about, no, we need to do this. And we taught the Cheyenne language to the children in the childcare center. And now today, of course, everyone's doing that, as they should, and we should, but it was kind of against the counter what people were saying at the time. But if I did one thing right at the time, I think I go back and look at that, and I think that was the right thing to do then, and it still is.
Yeah, definitely. And I know as our godchildren speak in their family Spanish and English.
Mhm.
And what was interesting, when they were very little, they didn't talk. They were, their brain and all the electrodes were getting connected. And then all of a sudden, when they did start talking, they spoke in both languages.
Mhm, mhm. It's interesting. My own daughter was with me in the program that I ran there, and she right now speaks 5 languages. And I credit the fact that she learned she learned Cheyenne as a child. Now she doesn't know it anymore, but she did learn that.
Wow, that is amazing. Hey, we got a minute before we hit a hard break, but I just got a quick question, and hopefully you'll be able to answer this is in due time. Your recent work as director of early childhood at the Bipartisan Policy Center has continued this interest. Can you describe your work on the tribal child care issue at the BPC?
Yes, we have a specific project focusing on tribal childcare. And for, what our work is really focused on right now is bringing equity to the funding of tribal childcare. We know that in the work that we've done, the way Congress divvies up money is ridiculous, to be honest. So that'll probably get me in some kind of trouble. But the fact that it's a flat percentage, it's not based on the number of children or the actual need. It's just a percentage. And every time a tribe is added to the federally recognized tribes, the others get less. That doesn't make any sense.
Let's talk more about this. Hey, we're with Linda K. Smith, and we're talking about early childhood. We'll be right back with Little Moments Count. You're listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake.
If the statistics say that 1 in 3 Native women and 1 in 6 Native men have experienced sexual assault in their lifetime, it means our whole community is affected by sexual violence. 1 is too many. Don't stand by, stand up. Don't engage in acts of sexual violence, and shut down the dirty jokes, the gossip, the victim blaming and shaming. As a community, we can change the way we respond. Contact the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition to attend a workshop to learn more.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Your Blue Line Extension Project wants to hear from you. We are working on extending the Blue Line light rail into North Minneapolis, Robbinsdale, Crystal, and Brooklyn Park, and connecting it to our growing transit system. Tell us about your neighborhood, your business, your family, and what you need from your Blue Line. Learn more and share more of your story at yourblueline.org. That's yourblueline.org.
Hey, Olgama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
This is Ross Stadheim, partner at MJSB Employment Justice. When you've been wronged at work or something just doesn't feel right, it's hard to know what to do next. Our firm can help. We pride ourselves on communication and listening to our brave clients to obtain their own brand of justice. When you hire MJSB Employment Justice, you're not just a number. You're a valued client who will be represented by one of our experienced and accomplished partners every step of the way. That's our promise.
Be heard. You deserve better. Contact us today at mjsbjustice.com.
You're listening to Native Roots Radio. This is Spirit from Reservation Dogs. Get up and listen.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This episode of Native Roots Radio is presented in partnership with Little Moments Count.
Yes, it is. And I want to say nearly 80% of brain growth happens in the first 1,000 days. And small moments of interaction like talking, playing, reading, and singing help create pathways that build a child's brain during this early stage in life. And we're here with Linda K. Smith, and we're talking about early development. I think we you were getting deep into something before we took a break, and that was pretty interesting what you had to say. I don't know if you mind repeating that. When a new nation becomes recognized, you were saying. You're muted right now. I don't know if I muted you or if you. Oh, unmuted. Oh, no, you're muted. There we go. Perfect.
Okay, we're back on.
Yeah.
No, what I was starting to talk about was the way Congress sets aside money for the tribal child care programs. And they basically throw in, a percentage. And it's like, okay, let's give the tribes 5%. Well, the 5% is not enough money. I think we know that. But the other reason that's a problem is every time there's another tribe that gets federal recognition, the pot gets thinner for everybody else. So there's really, it's counterintuitive that we would, just keep adding, more to and getting less. And so so what it amounts to in terms of childcare for every Native child, the government is giving about $520 per child per year. And anybody who understands early childhood and childcare knows that is not nearly enough money for what it costs to provide good early childhood, but what it costs parents. So we're trying to work and have, recommendations before Congress that thinks we need to start basing the child care funding first on the child counts, and not just on a flat percentage of here's what they get and divide it up. So, and this has been true in other programs. So if you take, for example, the home visiting program, the tribes, Congress said, okay, the tribes get this much money, enough essentially for about 26 tribes out of 574 tribes to get home visiting funds. There's something really wrong here, and we think we needed to tackle these problems. Now, they did double the funding for tribes in this last appropriations, but that wasn't enough. It's not nearly enough. And so what we're trying to do in the work we're doing is point out the inequities with the basic funding for these programs.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to say a friend of ours, Kelly, she said we held monthly gatherings and combined grant funding to host a meal, cultural activity, and parenting classes. We were able to use our CCDF and ICW prevention education and cultural grants and diabetes prevention grants. We had to be creative and think outside the box. Thanks, Kelly. And just got to give a quick shout out to Kelly. She's ho chunk ho, as I am, and as Haley is. So very interesting. Thinking outside the box is what you've had to do for many years. It sounds like, Linda.
Yeah. And, and I really applaud her for that, because that's exactly what we need to do. We did in Minnesota, actually. My bio says, I was at HHS in the Health and Human Services over the child care and youth or child care and Head Start programs. And we started a project where we actually provided funds to tribes to blend the money and come up with creative solutions to some of the challenges. We need to do more of that kind of thing because the best solutions are local.
Exactly. I agree 100%. I just want to kind of bring this back a little bit. What is your ultimate goal of your work? I know we've been saying a lot of different things, but just to kind of laser beam on that, what is your ultimate goal, Linda?
Well, I think a lot of the work that we're trying to do right now is help state agencies understand tribal sovereignty and all of the issues, the challenges that go along with that, and create better partnerships between the tribes and the states so that children who are not living on tribal lands get services. That's one big goal, because we know that well over half of families don't live on tribal lands. So how do families in take your area, St. Paul and that area get services if there's nothing tribal there? So we want to tackle that problem. We're proposing some things around the service areas and how we get services to families outside of that area, and just generally looking at better use of data and more helping, I guess, get this issue in front of Congress and helping us find the solutions to some of this.
Right. You published a report, Righting the Wrong, examine tribal child care in over 180 plans. This is kind of what you've learned, right? And what else have you learned through that?
Well, we learned, I think the biggest thing that we learned was the inequities in the funding. There's absolutely no question there. And then we learned a lot about the lack of data. And, we have been talking to people about we need to get some of this straightened out. And I think it's going to take cooperation between federal agencies. For example, the data coming out of the census is, I'm trying to pick my words carefully, but to say the least, problem. So, we need better data. We need to clean up some of these things so that we actually can figure out how do we fund these things better. So I think that the data and the inequities in the funding are probably the two biggest challenges. And then these service areas and figuring out how we serve families in these big cities. We have a lot of tribal children in cities where they're not getting much of anything.
Right. Here in Minnesota, I thought I heard something like 60% of the Native children live off reservation now.
Right.
And that's been a trend for many years, but I was kind of surprised to hear that.
Yeah. No, that's pretty consistent. That is actually, I think, conservative when, we say in our data over 50%, but it's upwards of between 70 and 80%.
Wow.
So it's a lot of families off the reservations, and we just need to address the needs of these families. We did I think that one of the first national surveys of Native families about a year and a half ago. We have some interesting thing on the need for childcare and how much of a barrier it is to families going to work, and that's pretty challenging right there. But then if there's no, and by the way, the Native families that we surveyed prefer programs provided by Native people. And that makes absolute sense. So how that says then we do need to do more to get programs where the families are, to get them services and get them services that respect the culture, the language, the traditions of the families.
Wow. And also here, I'm reading you did a documentary film on the challenges of Native families and what they face in the childcare. What was your findings in that documentary?
that was amazing, and I would recommend your audience take a look at that. It's actually on our website. But what we found on the Flathead, which is the reservation that I'm from, we did a documentary. We filmed at the Salish Kootenai College, has a childcare program associated with it. What we saw was, the challenges of the families on the reservation had in just accessing not just childcare, but housing. There were all kinds of challenges. One family, and it's in the documentary, was driving 75 miles in Montana on those highways in the winter because that's where they could find housing. And then they were driving back and forth with their children. And I think we can do better than that, folks. We just can. But what we also found was that on the Flathead Reservation, the gap, in other words, there's only one childcare space on the reservation for every 2 children. So in other words, the gap is almost 50%, that they have no childcare for those children. And then how do parents go to work?
Exactly. Linda, we got a minute left. What else would you like to say? Would you direct people to a website or to your work? And I really appreciated this. And I got to get you back on and talk about Edward Kennedy sometime.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, I would just suggest that they go to, our website is the Bipartisan Policy Center Early Childhood Initiative. We actually have a landing page for the work that we're doing with the tribal issue. And I would suggest they take a look at it and take a look at the documentary, because I think it's pretty powerful. And some of the parent stories were pretty, they're pretty emotional.
Wow. Thanks, Linda. Director of Early Childhood Policy at the Bipartisan Policy Center in Washington, D.C. Peony Gigi for being on, and hopefully we'll talk to you again.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
We do too. Up next, Bob Blake from Red Lake with the Solar Bear with the Solar News.
J&S Bean Factory is a native-owned, community-supported, cozy, artsy coffee shop which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. City Pages writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States.
And 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected.
Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf.
Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy.
As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired.
Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
This is David from The David Pakman Show, where we expose the Hatriots, liars, and Trumpists. Weekdays at 2 p.m. on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Would you let animals pick your insurance? Do you really need to experience mayhem to get the best rates? Or how about a celebrity quarterback or fake university saving you money? There's a lot of marketing stunts when it comes to insurance, but what you really need is someone looking out for you. Call Array Insurance, and they will work hard to find you the best insurance coverage and rates. So avoid gimmicks. Call Cheryl at Array, 763-504-3067 or arrayinsurance.com. Array Insurance, working hard for you.
Hi, this is Chad from AM 950. Snap Construction is arguably the most well-reviewed roofing, siding, window, and insulation contractor in the metro. Ryan is so excited about working with AM 950 and our listeners that he wants to help us grow.
This is Ryan, owner of Snap Construction. I was friends with Chad long before I started marketing with him. I was a bit skeptical of radio advertising before Chad convinced us to run ads. The advertising's been so successful, we want to help the station grow. We've absolutely loved working with the listeners of AM 950, and we all know how extremely extremely important this radio station is to the community. To help AM 950 grow, Snap Construction will be putting up proceeds to assist the station in marketing on social media. Snap Construction encourages you to follow, engage, share, and interact on the AM 950 social media platforms. Together, we can all work to ensure AM 950 continues to thrive and grow in our communities. We stand by our work with a lifetime craftsmanship guarantee. For a free estimate or more information on our financing, call 612-333-SNAP or check us out online.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. We have families waiting for a car. You know, over 85% of unemployed are successful in finding and keeping a job if they have dependable transportation. A car plus a job equals a life changed. 612-919-5526. We have families waiting for a car. 919-5526 or autotech.org.
Escape to the natural beauty of nature at the We Are the Medicine Black Moon Gathering event May 19th through 21st at Champion Valley in Lakeville. This wellness gathering offers a safe space for interactive education, healing, and relaxation in nature. And connect with others while respecting the sacred land. Join the supportive community by camping at the We Are the Medicine Black Moon Gathering May 19th through 21st at Champion Valley in Lakeville. Tickets at edgemagazine.net. With your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Partly cloudy tonight with a low of 48, then sunny Thursday with a high of 75. Latunji's Palette is a social enterprise business built with purpose and fortified with love. Discover the best peach cobbler in the world at Latunji's Palette, 1400 Park Avenue South in Minneapolis. Visit the website at latunjispalette.com.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Yes, they are, and they've been supporting us for over 6 years. And every birthday, which I have a birthday coming up on Facebook, I always have that as my fundraiser, my birthday fundraiser. So they're awesome and great people there. And speaking of great people, we have Bob Blake from Red Lake. I always love to say that. Get that out of the way, Robert. But we got Robert Blake with the Solar Bear with the Solar News, and always great to have you on.
Yeah. Hey, Robert. Hey, everyone. Good to be here. How's everything going?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. I just came back from Madison, Wisconsin, and did some tribal stuff and drove back home. Got to take a nap, and here we are on Native Roots Radio.
I saw that, Robert. That's pretty cool. What were you doing up at the over there at the? It looked like you were at the Capitol. You took a picture of the Capitol.
Well, my hotel was right across from the Capitol. So, and then I was at a clean water action in Wisconsin, which was there was like 1,000 people there supporting what's going on in Madison and all the lakes around there. And our tribe, Ho-Chunk Nation, is a big supporter. And we have a lot of people living in Madison. Of course, we have all those beautiful, animal hills in Wisconsin, and to preserve the ones that are left, and a lot of them around the lakes and getting the sulfur out of the lakes and things that you talk about. And these guys are really doing it and on top of it. And we're talking about the next 7 generations as you do talk about, Bob, about where we're heading in the Green New Deal and all the things that you're working on. And so, yeah, it's exciting time to be Native.
Yeah, and you know what, Robert? That is a great segue into exactly what this first story I want to talk about on the Solar News with the Solar Bear, and and what is happening in Canada right now with the Indigenous communities that are leading in the green energy boom up there. A lot what has happened with Canada is that they took a lot of their money, and it's similar to the way that the system works here in the United States. Like, that reserves have to apply to get the money to build the renewable energy projects too. But the difference is the red tape that the Canadians have to kind of go through is kind of less than what we have to do down here, and because this green energy boom is just happening up in Canada in the First Nations reserves up there, and it's just really exciting. And Canada is really looking at the First Nations to really lead the way in their country with renewable energy. So really, really exciting stuff happening up there with those First Nations and the and just the implementation of green energy into all of their communities.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the direction we got to go. And it's funny too. I've talked to people, and it's really kind of sad in a lot of things. And it's great to have you on and us talking about this, because I hear these talking points, even from the last president, still coming up, where these windmills are killing hundreds and thousands of eagles, and they're just regurgitating that. So it's great to have you on, Bob, and talk sense and get some ammunition for our listeners to because I'm always stunned when I hear stuff like that.
Yeah, and so what they do, everyone, when they put up these windmills, is they put them, what is the most traditionally been ways of the air current, right? This will be the most advantageous way to build these windmills. And what happens is the birds ride these air currents. Okay. Um, but of course, like we know in climate change, and a report just came out recently too, Robert, that if you're going to be flying, you're going to be experiencing more turbulence because of climate change. And so, this has really affected the air currents, and also a lot too with these new wind farms. They're putting up like they're painting one turbine like black, so like the birds can tell, you know what I mean? So
Right.
things are they're making the changes necessary so that the birds can see, and so that you have less deaths. But we definitely need our birds. They eat the rodents, and we know the rodents carry diseases. So it's a circle of life, and I'm all for that. But I got another story here on how the IRA incentives are really changing a lot of states, and kind of their outlook as far as like how they're putting renewable energy into their state plans. And it's incredible, all the way from rooftop solar, customer savings, economic development, and grid reliability. So the word out there that like renewable energy isn't good for your state or your for community, state leaders are implementing these plans into their into their forecast, and into their outlook into the future, and really pairing how states can take advantage of these federal programs. Even here in the state of Minnesota, we have a bill that where we will match. Now we will start matching these federal incentives. So it's really exciting for all this to be happening right now around renewable energy, and the state's taken a really proactive approach to trying to allocate or trying to grab a lot of these federal dollars out here. This has been one of the greatest investment into renewable energy and into green infrastructure this country has ever seen from the Inflation Reduction Act, Robert.
Wow, yeah, and I just gotta say this, we talked a little bit about my trip in Madison, and right outside the airport, they have a huge solar farm, and it's always cool because I kinda come in the back way to the Capitol there on, what is it, 39 and 55 or 52, and, beautiful to see. It's been there for a few years too.
Yeah, and in Minneapolis, yeah, St. Paul, we got that one above the the it's like a parking canopy up there. So
Yeah.
Yeah, if you ever pull in and you kind of look up, it's it's up there, it's up there out to the left there, the parking canopy. That project's been there for, I want to say 3 years now. I think it's been there for 3 years now. But that's been really a really cool program that they have there. And you see more of these airports, more of these like transportation hubs turning towards green energy because it just makes economic sense, Robert.
Yeah, it does. And again, I want to get back to maybe the dark cloud. We talk about carbon footprints and all these things that, are, that solar causes a bigger carbon footprint. And it's just a ridiculous right wing jibber jabber because we want to get off we want to get off not only the grid, but we want to get off of oil and all those things that are really messing up our the weather. It's just insane. Look at the Mississippi here in Minnesota. It's like in St. Croix, across that river, it's just huge. And there's lakes off 94 on the way to Wisconsin. I mean, that were never there, but there used to be farm fields. This is something that happens every 100 years. It's been happening so much more, Bob.
Yeah, no, I mean, climate change is really affecting, how, we're going to have to live and how we're going to have clean water, just like the great work that you're doing over in Wisconsin, Robert. Thank you so much, for all of us citizens, because, I mean, we only have so much fresh water in the world. Water is life. And,
Mhm.
this is a very important subject. And we need more politicians like you, Robert, that are going to stand up for the people and think about the next 7 generations. And so I'm really happy that you were in Wisconsin advocating for those issues for our planet, for the people, and for our communities, because it really it's that type of leadership, Robert, that is really going to change this around. When we think about everything that we can do, we think about everything that needs to be done, right? It's really
Mhm.
going to be led by our politicians like you, Robert, that's going to make that difference and have that voice out there that is really going to change the tide for this planet and for our communities and for the environment.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I appreciate that. And your work is based on our teachings as Native Americans. And we think of the next 7 generations because the 7 generations before thought of us. And that's why we're still here and we're always been, the protector of Mother Earth and Father Sky, and that's in our DNA, and frankly, it's in our white allies' DNA too, because we've all been colonized over these thousands of years. We're just the last front line, so to speak, right now, and we talk about that a lot, Bob.
Yeah, absolutely, right? We too late to explore, too early to like, and but just in time to like save the planet. And that's really what it is for us, Robert. So it's going to take all of us, and it's going to take these great programs that are being implemented, like the Inflation Reduction Act, and all of this great legislation, and just politicians like yourself, Robert, to keep on fighting for us, because you really are example, and you really do it. And I remember the first time getting on this you were like, run for office, you start a company, you were like, did
Right.
all that, Robert. And it's such a great example.
Well, can you hold on for a quick another segment for a couple more minutes? That'd be great. And we always say you need to resist, divest, run for office, and join a group and run for office. And Bob, you've done that too. You've run for office too, city council here and doing things like that. You're a doer, and we always have fun being on the show. I thought you were going to talk about our Iowa trip, but maybe we can talk a little bit about that in the next segment. Hey, you're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and we're with Bob Lake from Red Lake with the Solar Bear with the Solar News. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hey, Olgama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
When it comes to mental health, making connections with others can be a way forward. How do you reach out when you need someone? What do you do to support those who struggle? Connections can bring comfort, hope, and joy. Find ways that work for yourself and others, like sending a text, sharing a moment, offering a hug, seeing an old friend, creating space to listen. Visit cmentalhealth.org. That's cmentalhealth.org. cmentalhealth.org.
Eat Local Minnesota is a great way to find locally owned Minnesota restaurants and food purveyors. You'll find high-quality food and unique eating experiences with dishes from around the world. Just visit eatlocalminnesota.com for your next meal. Come visit the award-winning Hazel's Northeast in Minneapolis for breakfast, lunch, dinner, or weekend brunch. For breakfast, try the slow-cooked brisket hash, hippie cakes, and meat waffle. While for lunch, enjoy favorites like the buttermilk fried chicken sandwich or veggie burger. Hazel's is open Tuesdays through Saturdays, 8 to 8, with a Sunday brunch from 8 to 2. Located off 29th and Johnson in Northeast Minneapolis. More at hazelsne2go.com. If you're craving barbecue, then don't drive too fast or you will miss Scott Jamama's Hot Barbecue, located at 3 West Diamond Lake Road in Minneapolis. Scott Jamama's offers mouth-watering baby back ribs, grilled chicken, and half-pound pulled pork sandwiches. The potato salad, spicy baked beans, and twice-baked potatoes should not be missed. More details at scottjamamas.com.
This is Leonard Peltier. I'm in Coleman 1, U.S. Penitentiary, and I'm listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
Oh! Hey, we're here with Bob Blake, and Robert Blake is the owner of Solar Bear, and we're here with the Solar News, and you also have a nonprofit, Bob, that we'd like to talk about too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Native Sun Community Power Development, and we're doing some fun work. We're having one of our first solar training classes coming up in a couple of weeks up in the Red Lake Nation. We got 15 people's already signed up. We also have a workforce training program that's going to be starting in the fall that will be training individuals from all over the Twin Cities. And they can go ahead and contact us through the website. But we'll be starting outreach on that, probably August, I think I want to say. And then we're also working on the electric vehicle charging network through Minnesota to North Dakota to South Dakota, and hopefully into Michigan and Wisconsin here very shortly too. So a lot of exciting things happening. Working on the Solar Cup program, K-12 curriculum for the kids, and we got some other demonstration projects that we're doing too. So really cool things happening. And then Robert, I did want to point this out though. This just came out in Bloomberg News, and because of everything that's kind of happening with the rising of interest rates, inflation, and just all this talk about the economy right now. Yeah. I thought this was kind of a point in time to point out that U.S. power prices rise the most in 41 years. Electricity prices rise 15.8% to its highest since August of 1981.
Jeez.
So this is the highest price. So, when we talk about solar and renewable energy and how it's a hedge against inflation, because you as a consumer are going to know that price, right, that you're going to pay for the next 30 years that you have those solar panels. This is kind of what we talk about, because we don't know where prices are going with energy prices. But we do know that this is the highest that they've ever been since August of 1981.
Wow. Wow, and I was 20 years old then. That's how long ago that was. Hey, before we get any farther, Bob, too, I wanted to, we were joking a little bit about Iowa and how we did the radio show down there live, and we met all these cool people that we still, politicians and news people that we still talk with over the years. I want to wish you a happy Native American Heritage Month, even though it's always Native American Heritage Month for you and me, but I want to wish you that, and a lot of things going on this month in Indian country and here in the Twin Cities, and just really excited to celebrate and celebrating with you.
Yeah, I just got back from Washington D.C. last week, Robert. I was invited out to Vice President Kamala Harris's residence, um, and there was, I gotta say, at least half the people at that party were Native people from all over the country,
Wow.
and it was really exciting to see and meet some of these other Native people that are doing wonderful work around the environment, and of course, everyone that was there, and the great work that they were doing. But it was really nice to meet all those people and be invited and to be able to experience that. I don't think Solar Bear is ever going to do that again. So I thought I'd take the advantage while I had the time there to check it out.
Well, maybe the next president, or if it's Biden or a new vice president, or however it shakes out here in the next couple of years. Uh, yeah, I wouldn't count yourself. You were hanging out. You were a key speaker one night a couple of years ago with the former vice president Dan. I was going to say Dan Quell. Wow, no, Clinton's former vice president.
Al Gore. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. He had me on stage with him, and we were talking about the program that I did with training inmates up at Will River Correctional Facility. And so the idea there was to battle mass incarceration with climate change, fight climate change or mass incarceration. And, I think that, I believe I spoke to about 7 different states that they were implementing that same program in their states. So that was really cool that people garnered some inspiration and interesting you brought that up, Robert, because as I was at the party, there was a couple of people. One of them did come up to me and say, "Hey, I remembered you on stage with Al Gore," and
Yeah.
they were talking to me about that, and I was like, "Oh, hey, thank you. Like, what do you do? Thank you so much." So, yeah, that was really a cool event, and I was really happy and excited to be a part of that. And by the way, the Vice President Harris was such a just really wonderful person. I mean, she is. I mean, her speech was incredible. I mean, she's got the goods, Robert, to be president. Trust me.
Well, hey, did I tell you that I met Obama? Ho!
Wow. Yeah, I saw that picture.
15 seconds. Boom.
That
Got a
was
picture.
about what it was for me too. 15 seconds. Boom.
I was gonna tell Obama to tell his friend Joe Biden to free Leonard Peltier. I was all ready to go off on him and let him, and then he smiled, asked me how I was doing, put his hand out to shake, and I wanted to kiss him. I didn't want to yell at him. And then all of a sudden I got a picture, and then I was gone, mumbling to myself.
Well, speaking of like the ups and downs of like our political system, have you ever heard of Six Flags?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they are going to install the largest solar carport in the United States.
Wow.
So, if some of you are going to go out to maybe go check out, these taking your family out for the family summer vacations this year, some of you might go to Six Flags. They are installing the largest solar carport
Wow.
in the United States. That's going to be. I can't even imagine how big that project is going to look. I mean, it's
Mhm.
just probably just going to be massive. So I think that's really good. Good on for Six Flags. They said that they're going to generate the power to power the rides.
Wow.
And it really is a great move by Six Flags to do so.
That is huge. Now all we have to do is push our politicians to really support hemp batteries, and I will die a happy camper when we get to that point. And we need to lobby them and bring it up and talk to them, because we're heading towards solar, and in electric cars and batteries. We just need to do it a good way. And I always like my calculator story, right, Bob?
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings up another interesting point too, Robert. That we've got entrepreneurs out there right now, like these ones in San Francisco, that have figured out a way to get permitting for more solar projects. Going quicker in the city of San Francisco. So, Robert, it's incredible how this is creating a domino effect across the country, and more people are getting involved. And like you said, it's going to take all of us. So, I'm really happy to see all of us coming together the way we are.
Hey, Bob, thanks for coming on. Always great to have you. Always a positive sign, ray of light in talking about the future with you. Really appreciate it. Hey, if you are listening to the show, you are part of the resistance from Chief Plenty Coops. The ground on which we stand on is sacred ground. It is the blood of our ancestors. We need to resist, divest, join a group, run for office. We're still here. We are the seventh generation. I want to thank Bob Blake, Haley, and Linda K. Smith, the director of early childhood policy. What a great show. We'll see you tomorrow. We're still here. We are the seventh generation. Free Leonard Peltier now.